Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, Susan, I got a little taste of a windstorm yesterday and out of power for 14 hours. So
Oh, no.
That was a big blow.
Yeah.
That was a long time to be out. We were only out for
yeah, we the road right in front of us, an oak tree lost a limb and
Oh,
crashed onto and started burning. I mean, it was
Oh, wow.
it was fireworks. Yeah, the last day of November went out with a bang.
Well, let's call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Why don't we start with any public comments? Does anyone have any public comment they'd like to bring to the committee? Seeing nothing in the chat, let's move on. I'll enter to the approval of the minutes from November 16th. I'll entertain a motion.
so moved.
So seconded.
Motion moved by Steven, seconded by Dave. Any discussion on the minutes?
Another superb job.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, Michael. If there's no discussion, do a roll call vote. Arlene, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael?
Let's approve them.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I vote yes, they are approved. And let's move on to discussion with Susan Corbett. The floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all again. It feels like we just met yesterday.
I better mute. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen because I want to talk about the budget for just a second. And we are here. So I know Josh has sent out the revised budget version 3 of the draft. I was all excited yesterday when he came back and he told me that postage was going to be 18 cents, and I increased it to 4 mailings for a year, and then neglected to change the flyers to 4. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. So your budget is just a little over 15,000 for your priority items, which is the broadband installation offset and the public awareness campaign.
Okay.
In the document, I'll update the document again so you have it with all these correct numbers. In the document, I broke it into those 2 sections, both in the budget narrative as well as in when I inserted this budget into it. So you can see we have this top section. It's called priority funding in the draft, and then other funding for all these other line items. I didn't add up all those outline items because I think that when you look for funding, you're going to be looking for those individual line items. So I just wanted to check with anyone to see if there's any other thoughts around the budget, any comments, any more revisions that you want to do here, or how you feeling about this?
I had a question about the volunteer stipends, $250 for 5 people. I just wanted, I don't recall that before. Could you explain that a little bit more?
So in your discussion a couple of weeks ago, you talked about having money to do presentations, and the presentations, you've got the advertisement of presentation. So the average cost in Bay Pilot is about $150 per advertisement. And then, you wanted some money set aside for those public awareness campaigns. And so one way to do it is to bring in a stipend for volunteers. If you think that should stay in there, we can also take that piece out, but I'm not quite sure what else that you would use funding for in bringing people together for those presentations.
Mm-hmm.
Could we call it something different, though? It confused me when it says volunteer stipend. Could we call it like speaker stipend or whatever it was that describes what you just said?
I mean, I had called it the webinar or teach-in.
Teaching stipend.
Teach-in. And also, I was thinking, I mean, I don't know, I haven't done this before in Lincolnville, but if we offer something like cookies and coffee, maybe more people will show up. So if we say that there are complimentary refreshments,
Yes.
agree. That would make it a nice evening and maybe more people will show up. So if we call it the, awareness campaign or teach-in or something, information session.
Yeah.
Then maybe that is more inclusive and gives us more flexibility to use it for cookies and coffee.
$2,000's a lot for snacks.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, so this would still be 5 volunteers or 5 stipends. But, again, you let me know what you think the wording should be on this. I could take out this completely.
Is this for the facilitator?
No, this is for people that you're going to recruit in your community, hopefully. And that will help people. We can bring a class in over Zoom, but then if you have people in the room that can help individuals sign up for that benefit, this could be an incentive for some volunteers, if you will.
Right. The point is we want to have a budget and in case we need it. So what do we think we would use a budget for at these things? Yeah, I agree that refreshments is great. I guess there's no sort of security thing if it's just a town event.
Let me ask you, Susan, I noticed that there is a number in there for the digital navigator. And in fact, there's, this is at the library, and also for this part-time position, could the digital navigator person be as their first gig that they organize this teach-in, and that could be part of their job, so we would reduce that category but still have it?
Yep. So,
Well, one of the, we have to kind of go over what the library right now is willing and not willing to do at the moment. So I think that's, if we're looking to house a digital navigator at the library, what they would like to do is the courses first to see what the interest is. Then after the courses, look at some of the technology. We need to discuss that because they had a different idea from being a lending of the technology to lending it, but for in-house use technology. And then finally, the digital navigator. And so they has the first one, the courses, see what the interest is. The second thing, the technology, and we need to talk about what their idea and what we propose, which is for them to be a lender of technology, and they at this point don't want to do that. And then look at the digital navigator. They're saying this, and I was going to do this later on, but they're saying this because of they're in an influx right now. The person that they hired to replace the director got sick the beginning of October, and then middle of November, she resigned. So Sheila has taken over being the director. So though they're interested, I think that it is not something they don't want to pursue all 3 things all at once. They want to take it in stages. And that's kind of what I wrote to you. And I also, Sheila wrote back to me last night. Unfortunately, I couldn't read it, but they're really just looking at the first thing of hosting the courses. They'd be interested in doing that. And as far as funding, they really have not had much lending laptop, even for library use. They only had about 5 requests this year for that. And what really hundreds of people have used our broadband with their own devices and in the parking lot. So, and they also, if we did want to fund their own technology, which their computers are 8 years old, Steve Hand said that he thought that, they would probably need new computers. They found that Apple computers were the most new to technology friendly, and they thought that it'd cost about $5,000 to replace them. So I'm just saying, this is kind of talking to them a few times, trying to figure out where they are. And I think they have an interest in this, but their own personnel issues and how they're going to deal with it has to come first for them.
Can we just make it?
Arlene, what's your?
Can we make it more
No, go
general?
ahead.
Pardon?
Can we make that category just more general, something, miscellaneous, friends,
I'm thinking.
speakers, technical assistants, and events, or something that allowed us to do what Steve suggests and what you're also suggesting, but not limited to the volunteers.
Yeah, just call it facilitators. That's great.
Facilitator
There's
stipend,
stipends, yeah.
right?
Okay.
Would that do?
Yep.
Facilitators and events,
And
I wouldn't-
events.
or just something so you can buy some.
I think having different lines makes more sense. Having refreshments, facilitator stipend,
That's fine.
just so it's very clear to the select board. Susan, I just have a question. So it's $50 per stipend, $50 stipend per volunteer per session. And under quantity 4, that's assuming there's 4 volunteers per event.
Yeah, so let's change that number then. If there are 4 facilitators and you do 2 events and you're giving them
It's $50. Should that
$50, yeah, if you do 50, I mean, you could do 25. It's really up to you.
Let's back up. We're shooting for 2,500. That's a good number to shoot for. So
We're shooting for under 15,000 for your
Yeah.
request to the town.
okay. So I think facilitators, we don't have to talk about numbers. We could just say it's $500 per event for facilitators.
For
So that
2
brings that to
sessions?
1,000.
Okay,
So that's okay.
And then what's a reasonable refreshment number? 250 per event.
How many? That's too high. How many events are we thinking about having?
so we had talked about doing, this budget is calling for 2, but at 500, if you have 4 or 5 facilitators, I mean, you sort of have to back into those numbers.
You also have to double the advertising. Is that? I'm not sure exactly how the advertising. 6 at 150 is what? 6
Yeah.
ads over a period of.
That's over a period of a year. So you may do
Oh.
advertising in addition to this. You might be doing other advertising
Okay.
around digital inclusion, not other digital inclusion efforts.
How do we feel? How do you feel about $50 for refreshments? I mean, no one ever has a request to the select board for refreshments. So I'm just trying to keep it
That was the number I was thinking.
realistic.
We could just say overhead. I mean, something like that. I guess the school doesn't cost us anything, but janitorial, I mean, I don't know what we'd have to pay for to run an event.
I think refreshments is fine, just $50 per event.
Okay.
I don't think we'd have to pay for the space. If that's okay with everyone.
And that gets your budget down to just under 14,000.
Okay.
So Susan, could you repeat what you're showing it as?
Yep. So what we're looking at is doing 4 mailings a year. The stamps are 18 cents. It's going out to both your residents and seasonal people. The average cost through Staples to print brochures is about 17 cents per flyer. And if you're going to mail out 4, your cost on just the mailings would be $1,940, which would be 4 mailings per year. If you do FCC affordable connectivity presentations, I've put 6 advertisements in here because you may run a couple, 2 or 3. I think you've got weekly papers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this just this covers it in case you need the 6. At 100, average cost is about $150 per ad. $50 per event for 2 events, $500 for facilitator stipends for 2 events. So the total is going to bring you to $13,940 would be your ask to the town.
And maybe strike the words Penn Bay Pilot and just say advertising.
Yep, can do that.
Okay, so the question is, are we comfortable planning an event with what we're saying? It's if you back out the 900, so it's $550 available to run the event. Yeah, that's probably good.
Okay.
I think. I mean, I don't know. I haven't run one.
And where is this going to be taking place? Have we found a place, or is it the library? Or
Paul Russo said we could use the school at no cost, or you could use the library if they'll allow us.
Great.
Okay.
I would think the library, this feels like it really fits that. The school feels a little, it's not as homey. I don't think we need the space of the school, of the cafeteria or the gymnasium. I feel like the library should be,
we have to also
as long as they're okay with it.
how many people we're hoping to get. You know,
If you're going to break up and actually help somebody do something, there's a lot more room in the school cafeteria to have it, separate tables for people.
yeah.
Right,
Right, that's true.
I think so too.
Okay, that's a good point.
I think so too, and I think also that parking is easier. It's just, I mean, it's not as homey, that's for sure, but it's more efficient. So I think we should do it in the school cafeteria, and frankly, I think it's the kickoff of the whole community awareness campaign and involvement. It's the first time, and that's why I suggested 2 sessions. One that we have, and of course recorded, so if people wanted to just watch them, they could, but then they couldn't have cookies. But if we did it 2 times, then the person leading it could also, because we would have lined up by then, the deal with the library about having the courses. So maybe we would have the first, couple of courses scheduled. So that's one of the things we could explain at this opening night. We would have people there, which could be volunteers, could also be some of us, that would get trained and learn how to help people apply for the benefit. We could do that. And then if we do it a second time a bit further on for those who, weren't sure the first time, or just to give people a better choice of a second date, we could do it again. And that would dovetail with the classes at the library, that we would be really not asking the library to do anything except make their space available. Because we would have a person who would be paid, and who would be the coordinator with the NDC, who give these, they would have to figure out how you could, show a Zoom class in the library. Does the library have a screen and the ability to do a Zoom?
Pretty sure that, well, at least a projector. I could always bring the owl too.
So, because we have to make sure it was technically possible.
Yeah.
But and a lot of these, if I'm not mistaken, Susan, the venue can specify how many people they can accommodate. So we can say that it's, like we have space for 5 people, or 3 people, or 10 people, and this is the first date that we're going to be giving a kind of how to use the internet, how to get online intro course. And that would all be part of the content that we would go over at this thing at the school to kick it all off.
Yeah. Susan, does your organization provide, the technical facilitators that we need, or do we find those?
You would need to have those on your side, but we would have our instructors work with that facilitator on your end. The other thing too is that through your public awareness, we can do registration for this, so that you have a better idea of how many people might be coming to your event if you pre-register everybody.
You mean even for the teach-in, not just for the class?
For the class, if you wanted to do registration, it's up to you. We usually do registrations for all of our students. This is a little different because this is a presentation that you're all doing at your location. But if you wanted to register people so that you would know how many people would be attending, we could do that pre-registration and they would sign up through our portal.
What do you think? Should we do that for the teach-in? Not for the class, but for the teach-in.
Well, what's the benefit if we have a big enough space?
I think it puts a hurdle.
It's adding friction. Yeah, I wouldn't.
I think it just makes it a little bit harder for people to say yes. We're trying to encourage people to show up, which is why we're giving them coffee and cookies.
Yeah.
Let's not make it harder. Just show up.
I agree.
Just show up. We're going to advertise it. We'll have flyers. Everybody knows where the school is. Everyone knows where the gym is, if that's where we have it, because that's where we all vote, or in the cafeteria, whatever you think, whatever the school principal thinks.
Yeah.
And the cafeteria might be better because there are tables. So if we wanted people to be able to sit at tables without them having to set them up in the gym, but whatever, and that we would do ourselves, although we might ask Susan or her staff for, content, like a cheat sheet, or we might even find somebody who knows about this and knows about what NDC offers, who's local, who could talk about it. But, we would take on the responsibility of doing that. That would be a broadband committee deliverable.
And one thing that we could do for those that are volunteering to help others is we could do a session before the public session for all of you to walk you through the program. I think that would be really helpful for all of you.
And the form, right.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting people to come out to this is going to be a real challenge. That seems, and I think we should push ahead with it, but I think it's going to need a lot of personal outreach. going to whomever you can think of
Right.
to offer people rides because if we just send out postcards,
Nobody will show up,
I don't think they will.
even if we're giving refreshments.
I wonder
like that.
I wonder if we held, this is just another thought. I wonder if NDEC held a virtual at the same time period as your in-person. If that might bring people in who don't want to come out at night or whenever it might be the weather. We're talking, after the first of the year, we're talking winter weather. So that's a possibility too. We could sort of do with this in tandem.
Oh, so it could be a hybrid. You could either come in person or watch it on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a great idea.
And have it so people can interact as well.
I think that's a great idea.
Are we
It
considering
does.
it in a classroom? Because or in one of the school
Yeah.
classes with the cafeteria?
Well, I'll volunteer to run the technical.
Well,
side.
I'm sure that the school does Zoom all the time because that's what they do.
But the
I'm just
cafeteria-
saying, if it,
Well, we have, we can decide if we want, how big a room we want. I mean, do we think we're going to have 20 people or 200 people?
20.
Okay, so if it's 20 people, we can do it in a classroom.
So we don't have to plan the event to the final T tonight, but I like the budget. The budget works.
having it high, we might, have people who just don't, I think you have to have a certain sensitivity of what we're asking. We're asked, on the one hand, we're asking to help people, but on the other hand, we're having people reveal that they need it. So that has to be done. And so I think a hybrid one might be a better, a kind of meeting of both sides, perhaps.
Okay.
Well,
and then
and
also,
remember when you're promoting this, how you're promoting it as in the positive, not the negative.
Right.
Right? Did you know that you could get this discount on broadband instead of saying, if you're low income, this program's for you? So sort of flip it around and put it in, hey, there's this great deal for Mainers.
and we'll do it on YouTube as well. So if people don't know how to use Zoom, they can just watch it on YouTube simultaneously.
So I think we should have an event chair from.
Hey.
Okay, Stephen, would you like to
No,
volunteer?
No, I don't think it should be someone like me. But I think we should, because we can't all do it together. So somebody should, let's nominate someone who's not here.
Well, who is the most experienced?
Jordan.
Let's have Jordan do it. Jordan is really great at organizing things and getting them to happen.
I wonder if we could also, I get a sense that the front desk at the town, particularly for older people, is a real resource, about how do I do things. Could there be some training there or some, having those folks point the inquiry to somebody in, us, so we can help people, not so much at the event, but help them outside of the event?
I think they'd be happy to pass
So
along.
keep it,
Susan, go ahead.
yeah, and keep in, NDC can offer these classes to our partner on-site programs across, in your community, right? So if the library, for instance, decides that they would like to become a partner on-site class program, we can be offering this ACP benefit in that venue.
It'd just be nice to have multiple ways in addition to the event we're talking about.
Right.
Well,
to-
I'm sure if we gave them a stack of flyers, they would give them to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But I agree, we should explain to them, what's happening in detail so that they'll.
I frankly, I think the two courses that we're talking about, this, the benefit and also the wellness, the helping seniors to access healthcare, would be two things that the library would be interested in. One of the library secretary talked about, and I actually was going to bring it up to Susan, the Medicaid, all of the forms that they need are all online.
Mm.
And so so that would be something, she wanted to know if one of the, when I shared the catalog, she wanted to know if accessing the forms that you need would also be a course or some way of helping people.
Okay, great. Yeah, we can have a stack of flyers in the entryway of the town office. I don't think it's realistic to expect the staff to say anything beyond here's a flyer. Yeah.
So what's the timetable here? When would this because what we're talking about now is presenting the plan that Susan has so beautifully prepared and the budget ask.
Yep. December 27th.
December 27th.
Yeah.
And then we would probably want to do this in January, have the actual event.
The monies won't be finally approved though until next June.
Right.
So you're talking about summer, fall?
Really?
Yeah, we have.
Unless they'll let us use monies.
I mean, the Broadband Committee currently has a budget of, don't we, $5,000?
I mean,
So-
if we could at least do the information session out of existing money and not wait 6 months.
Right.
That doesn't seem.
I think we have thousands of dollars that we could. The budget here doesn't have to line up with.
So let's
with
ask
next
the
year's budget.
selectmen for approval to use that this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
for next
very
year,
good
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It's a very good
May
point.
I just want to interject this, and I was talking at the library, and even mentioned it offhand to Stephen about it. Shouldn't this committee be a different name now? Shouldn't it be the Lincolnville Digital Equity and Digital Inclusion Committee?
The next committee, yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Because I think that, frankly, I would like to see more people involved. And this, maybe you're not a techie, but you're a human interest person.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I gave the library the document of the civil rights, digital civil rights in Maine, digital equity, civil right. I can't remember the complete name of it, but they were very interested in that. So I think if we change the name and got more people involved, that's just my suggestion.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Susan, what's next?
Okay, okay, so I made a change in the affordable equipment. I took the laptops out and for the purpose of tying this section of the budget into the budget for adults. That said, you still have, this 8,000 or so in the budget. So you could still move it into laptops versus tablets, but I think it flows better in the document just to keep it to the tablets, knowing that if you need to change it, if you have the funding, you can move into other types of technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could we, would it be possible to put something in the center of the page saying, town-funded activities, and then below the first box have activities funded by other sources or something? So when
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, so when we get into the document after we finish this piece, I've done some of that, but we can do some editing on that. I think the rest of it, we haven't done anything else with the rest of it. It's just as we have it last week, and unless anybody has any changes, we can move on to the actual plan. Yeah.
Any questions or changes from the committee to that part? Okay.
So the equipment and the hotspots, I left the meeting clear that we wanted to get those funded outside of the town. Are we still saying that we're going to seek non-town funding for the?
Yes. Yes, and it's much clearer in the actual document. This is just a worksheet. So this whole section here, this is what the request to the town for
The
funds.
total request.
This, The
I just-
total request, right.
Wasn't clear among the
And
committee.
then everything from affordable equipment down would be other sources of funding.
Right, I'm asking a different question. I'm asking the people on the committee whether we're still, if we put something down for monies that we're going to raise, then we should be committed to doing it. Are we committed to raising the monies for the navigators? Is the question I'm asking.
The 13,000?
Yeah. I'm fine if we are, but we have to, I don't think we should just put it down if we're not really committed to doing it.
Susan, how realistic is it that we can get everything from affordable equipment down raised outside of the town?
There's a big initiative going on around the state around digital navigators and getting funding for digital navigators. I think about this plan is eventually going to be rolled up. It's going to be submitted. The state will see what this plan is all about. I think leave it in. I think that there's going to be opportunity for funding later on.
Okay.
The
On down.
governor is not opposed to the digital navigator. And in fact, some of my discussions with Sheila is, if this were happening 6 months, 9 months from now, they may have they're just in a state where they have their own priorities first. And it's also Lincolnville Community Library. We gotta need to take that out, Susan.
Yeah, it is in the document. I'll fix this one here though.
Okay. But I'm just saying none of the ideas they were opposed to, but the timing of them and how things got rolled out was their concern.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, I think you have to remember too, this is a living document. You're not going to have it all done in 6 months. It's going to be on an ongoing basis as funding opportunities arise, depending on your committee and how active a committee that you have. You have a lot of factors in what happens when we say we're done writing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think somewhere in the document, we need to say this is, I know that people like, a cut and dry situation, but this is an evolving situation. So how do you get the verbiage to justify that in a document that people just want it kind of black and white, I guess, or a committed timeline?
I've got an idea around that. So you hold on a second. Okay. All right. So before we get into this, what some committees will do is before we get to the table of contents, they will write just a short couple of paragraph or 2 paragraphs from the committee talking about the process and what your vision for this plan is going forward. And so that helps address what Arlene is saying, that we put it right up front, that this is a living, breathing document that's going to be referred to over a period of time. Hopefully a committee will pick it up and continue this work. And it makes more sense for this to come from the committee than it does for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to add that as homework before the next meeting.
Yeah. There you go. That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
All of us, or Hanukkah present.
And Josh, I can send you the one that Mount Vernon did to give you a little bit of an idea of how they did it, if that
Okay.
is helpful for you. Yeah, I mean, it's public document, so not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, so in this version, we've added in the pilot projects. And one of the things that Steve brought up is that if we're doing this affordable broadband project and promoting the FCC Affordable Connectivity Program, what does that look like? And so here's where it starts to get into the details and I'll make sure that this aligns with our discussion tonight and make sure the words, instead of volunteers, will do facilitators, etc. But this is basically, it's this short little paragraph of what a pilot project would look like, which ties into your budget narrative. The second one is the telehealth project for older residents. So I sent it to Josh, and I'm not sure if he forwarded that email, but I made a connection at Maine Health through a colleague. And surprisingly, I got pretty quick traction on it. And tomorrow, and certainly open to anyone who would like to join us, I have a meeting with Deirdre Doherty from Maine Health. She is with the Community Health Improvement for Maine Health, Penn Bay Medical Center, and Waldo County General Hospital. And so the opening in the discussion that I had with her was, if we're this community is looking to increase telehealth services for their older adults. They're looking to raise money for devices for older adults. Would you be interested in working with this community on a project? And there's some interest there. So I will send my Zoom link to Josh, and Josh, if you can just send that around, that's the link we'll be using tomorrow when we meet. If none of you can meet, I'm very happy just to share the meeting notes with all of you when we're set. I'm hoping that she actually is going to give you someone to work with on this project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, I was quite excited about that because I was running out of options of people that I knew.
I just noticed, whoops, go back up.
Yeah.
50% of Lincolnville's recents.
Oh, residents, thank you.
Sure.
Great, super. So this will also, this section will change a bit based on those conversations with Maine Health. We may make it a little more generic and not into the, into all of the detail, just so that you can wrap up the report and have it done before the end of the month.
Great.
Was there budget associated with this?
What I tied in with this was the devices.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is why I moved those devices to tablets versus laptops, because I think that makes much more sense with an older population. And then I added a pilot, hopefully so that this would be a collaboration with the adult ed programs to work with some of the business sites and social media skills and other digital skills. And again, this can stay generic because I think that's going to be a work in progress with the adult ed programs, but at least you've got a placeholder in here. Right now we have a to be determined budget. May not cost you anything, but we'll keep it in as a line item just in case. If anything, it may get, if there's going to be anything in that budget, it could be just in sending flyers to businesses or doing some advertisement in the local newspaper. But I think you can, for the purpose of your report, I think you can leave it as a to be determined and fill in the gaps as the program develops. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. All right. So, and then what I did here, and again, just in the first section is priority funding, or we can call it whatever you'd like. This is the funding for the $10,000 and for the event planning and the flyers and the mailers. So is there a better description that you'd like for this section?
Do we want to call it town funding and grant funding, or is that too specific? Just in general, how do we distinguish these? Priority and other is not quite.
Or municipal funding, maybe? More technical.
Yeah, I think it's good to, because when I read this tonight or this afternoon, I was confused whether it was including all the things that we didn't talk about
Okay.
having the town pay last time. So if you could say grant funding or, other public funding and then have municipal town funding, that would be good.
Yeah, grant funding. That sounds good.
Yeah, I think especially when you're showing this to the town fathers, this will be an easy read for them.
So we're going with
That's
grant
pretty much
funding and
it.
municipal funding?
Yep, municipal funding and grant funding. And again, I'll change this up to version 4 so it has all the current
We talked about the hotspots being paid for maybe through the business trade group, so we might want to keep that a little broader, say,
Can I ask this question about the tablet? Are they going to be given to people, or are they a lending library?
could be either one.
I don't see us funding giving people tablets to keep forever. That seems, that would be great.
Okay, because that's something the library, when I was talking to them, and this is how it evolved regarding, do we want to, okay, what I'm thinking you're saying is that the library could probably use newer technology just for themselves and maybe to loan for people for in-house use. But that is not what you are talking about.
No, we're
No.
talking about tablets to go to older adults so that they can participate
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
in telehealth visit.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
You-
taking off the table, helping the library to fund their own technology for in-house use for people who don't have technology.
Arlene, how would that work?
All right, when we had this discussion, all right, at the library, what we discussed was the fact that they don't want to be a lending library of technology. They said it would be too complicated for them. However, they do have two laptops, one iPad that they give to people. But in this last year, the latest thing was, we only had 5 requests this year. The technology is 8 years old. Steve handed, we batted around this, and he thought that they could probably use newer technology in the library. So, and they came up with $5,000 as the possible figure, and they talked about the fact that Apple computers seem to be the more user-friendly. So I'm just saying they didn't really want to be, at this point in time, they didn't want to be a lending technology library. They thought it would be too difficult. If something broke, if there was something that people didn't bring it back, they were just.
Arlene, you had said that they gave people laptops and tablets. Did you mean they loaned them out?
No, they for use within the library.
Oh, in the library, not leaving the library.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
So I'm just saying, that was, and we batted around the idea of the fact that they had old technology, and maybe we could help them pursue some funding for that.
So if I can just throw some comments in here, I think that the whichever committee is going to continue moving forward with this plan can always add in funds to raise for specific purposes. And certainly helping the libraries is a library themselves. They have they can apply to the Stephen King Foundation and request. They are very they almost all they do a lot of technology funding. So it sounds like that there's an opportunity for them to get the funding to replace their existing equipment by upgrading a grant to the Stephen King Foundation. But they, because they're sort of in a flux, they may need some assistance as they all move forward.
Okay. So, okay.
So the consensus is not to include that in the current plan.
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
What is the consensus?
I don't think we should include it. It's too complicated and it's not firm enough.
okay.
So this is for the 20 tablets?
I just want to report back to them that, and they, on the second, the second email I got from Sheila was, let's not do the technology yet until we find that anybody even needs us to lend them a computer for in-house use. Most people bring their computers with them, is what she said.
Right. So
Maybe what I would do is suggest that the Stephen King, if you could send me information, Susan.
I can.
Okay, and I would just like to let them know that, this is the avenue we're going in rather than looking for funds for their technology.
Michael, were you going to say something?
yeah, I was going to say this isn't the 20 tablets. That's the telehealth pilot, and that's something else. And I wouldn't say rather, I don't make it sound like we're excluding them from something. It's more we hear what they're saying, so we're not going to push currently for.
Right.
Okay, so this is something that's no longer in the budget. Is that correct? Just to clarify.
Right, it hasn't been in the budget. We didn't.
It's never been in the budget. The 20 tablets for telehealth for seniors, that it's going to be lent. We don't have the vehicle yet of how it's going to be lent to people. That's
Okay, but okay, got it. So we still need to figure out. Okay.
So we all agree that it would be a nice message to the library, but we're not going to put our efforts into raising money for their equipment. But otherwise, we're keeping the tablets in for the telehealth.
We just still need to figure out who's going to be signing those out, in and out.
But we can do that.
And that could be the healthcare provider that you're working with too.
Oh, okay.
Now we did drop. Dave raised the point that if grant funding might not be the right term for the stuff that is not municipal, because we might be asking local business groups.
Susan added.
Want to just go other? Say
I
that
saw
again.
I saw you add the other, which was good.
Oh, you did. Okay, all right.
Or something.
Yeah, I did grant and other funding.
Great. Okay.
That sounds.
Okay, that sound okay?
Yes.
I should have realized, Dave, if the question wasn't answered, you would have kept asking it.
Well, that's all I've got. Unless any of you have any others, I will. I'll just keep tweaking this, and you're almost there.
I have a couple of language suggestions, and I'll just email it to you.
Okay, great.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
wordsmithing is fine. It doesn't hurt
Great. Susan, while you're
my
still here,
feelings.
while you're still here, why don't we schedule our next meeting?
Okay.
How does that sound?
Which should be our last one, right? Because this report has to be done.
It's got to, yeah. So our last meeting, yeah.
It's a positive thing.
Our last meeting,
So what about in 2 weeks, December 15th, Thursday, December 15th at 6 p.m.
So can I ask just a procedural question? You said the select board meets on the 27th of December.
Yes. That
That's
is
when we're going to make our presentation to them.
correct. I expect all of you to be there
In person?
somehow, in person or
When
remote. if
are
possible.
the select board meetings?
They are every
Like what time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
They're usually every second and fourth Mondays of the month, because it is the day that Christmas Day is observed. It's going to be the 27th.
Okay.
Could we meet with them though, not on the 27th? That's gonna be a tough day for a lot of people.
Well, no, they have their meeting anyway. We're just one agenda item.
I know, I'm just saying, if you want heavy attendance from us, the 27th isn't a great date to expect that.
That's tricky. It's already been set. We could change it, but
No, it's fine. I'm not gonna be there.
okay, that's fine.
So at that, just working backwards, at that meeting, we're going to present the plan and the accompanying budget
And the feasibility study,
and the feasibility study
which I need to still.
and our letter of transmittal.
Yeah.
And then we go out of business.
That's right.
And so we're also going to then present our proposal for going forward.
Yes, it would be great if we could come up with a draft charge for
Right.
the future digital equity and digital inclusion.
Which is when we would change the name.
Yeah.
And we would be really overseeing the implementation of this plan, but not the stuff that came from the feasibility study, which relates to LCI, which the board itself is going to do.
Correct.
So our continuing responsibility, or the reconstituted version of this group, is really this digital equity and inclusion plan implementation.
I see it being the sole
Purpose.
responsibility.
Okay, so that's an easy charge.
Yeah.
And then that's like, is it usually a year long that you ask for these committees to exist, or is it more than a year?
No, it all depends on the realistic expectation of how long the work will take. So some charges can be 3 months, 6 months. It all depends on the work.
Well, I'm just thinking if the June is when the money is approved for the next fiscal year, that's how it works.
Mhm.
It's sort of a pain in the neck to have to every 3 months or every 6 months even be re-approved, because some of these things, especially the grant applications that are not the town funded things, you have to sort of stay on top of. So I think we should ask at least for a year, if not more, if not 18 months. And so if that's all the case, then we need to have a meeting of this committee to go over that whole package of stuff prior to the 27th.
Right. So in 2 weeks is going to be a long meeting to make sure we have everything lined up.
So 2 weeks
Would-
from today is the
would,
15th.
Yeah. Susan, yes?
yeah, I was just gonna, if you feel that you want to do a meeting with just finalizing and voting on this plan earlier, like in a week, it's not going to take me much time, these finals.
I'm fine with one long meeting where we approve the plan, where we do the charge, we do the things that Steve just talked about, rather than 2 meetings.
Michael, how do you feel? You're muted.
Doesn't that say it all? I'm checking my schedule on for the 15th. A long meeting is fine, as long as I can be there. I'll have to. It'll take me a
Okay.
minute to figure this
Yeah,
out.
and I'd like some time to look this over, not just, a day before, because,
I'll get this out to you by early next week.
um,
great. So let's do a long meeting the 15th.
Great.
I will go through a complaint from the select board was that the feasibility study had some incorrect just names, words. So I'm going to go through and correct that myself and have that sent to all of you prior to our meeting on the 15th. So we can look at everything that's going to be presented on the 27th. Okay, great. Do we need any other questions for Susan from the committee?
How are you, Susan?
I'm fine, thank you, Arlene.
This is great work, Susan. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent work.
Yeah.
Thank you. Josh, I'm gonna send an email out right at as soon as I'm off the call with tomorrow's information already.
Sounds good. And once you leave, we'll talk about if anyone wants to join you tomorrow. So we'll let you know.
Okay. All right, wonderful. You all have a great evening.
You too.
So-
Bye-bye.
So not on the agenda, but I sent around 2 email threads regarding Susan's meeting tomorrow. Does anyone, I think at 10 a.m., does anyone want to join her via Zoom?
I cannot, so.
Stephen? Dave?
I can.
Arlene?
Tomorrow? No, I can't tomorrow.
Okay. I can't either. So that's fine. She'll be there. So not a problem. Let's see. Let me bring up the agenda. Arlene, do you want to expand any more on your meeting with the library?
Well, I kind of wrote a little bit about it, and so second version of the notes, they would like to, one of the main things they said is they'd like to be involved with the town and this plan.
Yeah.
But they would like the first point of the hosting the courses was something they were interested in, especially if there was a lot of interest in it. So they wanted to gauge the interest. The devices, like I said, they didn't want to become a lending library at this point in time. And I'm going to basically give them the information about the Stephen King granting that they could perhaps pursue on their own. And then the digital navigator, even though we had we looked over the Washington navigator plan. I think it needs to be finessed a bit. And how would it be applicable to just Lincolnville? Or, could it be something that was Tri-Town, Hope Library? So I'm just saying, have several libraries share a digital navigator. So that was just basically, they had a full agenda just with the fact that their director left.
Yeah.
And they had been training her for a while to take
Right.
over. So,
Right.
so they're in flux, but I think they're generally interested in this. It all feels too soon for them. They
Okay.
need a little bit more lead time, perhaps find another director, train that person. So that was what I was picking up from them, that this was too much for them to take on. But they did have an interest in it. I would like to, share it once we finalize the plan. It's something I'd like to share parts of it with them so they can see how it evolved.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, let's go to action items. So yeah, once once Susan shares what the other town wrote for their sort of mission statement in their plan, I'll send that around, and perhaps we can all think about, writing a draft and compare notes at the next meeting. Something that really encourages people to want to attend these workshops and convinces the select board to fund the whole thing, if possible. Any other action items?
Just to update you. So I did talk to Paul Russo, the principal of the Lincolnville school. He was, the first question, is there anything we need to do for you? And he said their school is doing really well with digital equity because of all the funds during the pandemic. He said the woman that they have that's the specialist, she's helping kids write code and do stuff like that.
That's
so
awesome.
it's really, they're doing some great stuff. He said, she doesn't have time to come be a facilitator, but she's a resource, and and in terms of using the school, he said they'd be totally open to that.
Okay, great. All right. Any non-agenda items?
Yeah, I just want to say the FCC's broadband map is out.
Yeah.
So what it basically does is for the 1,483 locations in the town, all the different providers have said, which ones they can reach. I don't think that's really relevant to us right now based on what we're doing, but people should know that that's available. So for instance, we know which points LCI says they can currently reach with fiber, which points they say they can reach with DSL, which points Starlink says they can reach, which I think is all 1,483, but that's sort of what that data is.
There's a link to it. I got it from the National Broadband Committee, sent a link, I think.
Yeah, it's out there, and you can also download the actual data. You can look at it on a map. The data is available as spreadsheets.
Great. Okay.
The Maine Broadband Coalition annual meeting in Bangor is next weekend.
Are you going?
No, but Ivan is.
Okay. Good. Well, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion moved by Dave, seconded by Stephen. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Arlene, how do you vote?
Let's go.
Michael?
I agree.
Stephen?
Yes.
Dave? Yes, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Have a good night.
Too.
See you guys.
Bye,
Hey,
Dave.
enjoy Washington, Steve.
Yes. Are you going to try and tune in for any of it?
I am going to try. I've got a dozen different things, but I'll certainly try to catch some of the keynotes.
Did you see that Tony Blinken is speaking on at 11?
I saw
Yeah.
that, and I'm looking forward to Jamie Raskin also.
Yes, exactly.
What is this event?
Say hello to them for me.
Absolutely.
Cheers,
Jake.
guys.
Which is the Progressive Jewish organization